So Caliban Prime has released, and you're probably looking around YouTube for some Caliban Prime videos that go over particular builds that are really efficient and common. And although I like to provide said builds, and I will do today as well, you've got a setup that can easily mop rooms instantly. You might also be looking for something a bit more unique and fun that's also effective at the same time, and today I think I've got the perfect build for you. We'll be going over two total, one that's more focused on fun whilst the other is more focused on effectiveness, and we're going to start with the fun one today. First, let's quickly take a look at Caliban Prime. In terms of statistical bonuses, he has a better shield and energy pool than the base variant, and I'm not going to be going over his base kit all over again because this is a Prime Warframe video. Most of you guys are already familiar with his kit by now. If you're not, I do have a previous video based on his rework, and the builds in that video are also still relevant, mind you. But assuming you guys know how his kit works already, I'm going to jump right into talking about the first helmet build in particular, and the helmet I've got to talk about is Smite. This is the subsume off of Oberon. It's his first ability, and it sends out a singular projectile at first, and when this strikes an enemy, it will send out more sort of ricocheted projectiles, and then they'll go back to the original target, doing another instance of damage. Sounds simple at first, but there's a lot of weird things in regards to this skill. The first one being that it has scaling damage. If you want to make use of this scaling damage, you want to be using this skill on an enemy that is armor stripped. Oberon himself obviously comes with an armor strip, but so does Caliban, so we're already ticking that box. However, there is a problem with Smite, and that is enemy density. If there is multiple enemies around the cast target, those projectiles that send out will home towards other enemies instead of going back to the original target that you casted the skill on, meaning that all that 6 scaling health damage that you would have had before is going to disperse, and it's just not going to be very effective. Side note though, Oberon is getting a rework soon. As of this video, we don't know what the details are. I would imagine Smite is going to stay because it's one of the skills that people actually use. So I'm assuming it's going to get some buffs and maybe quality of life that maybe make this build even better. Anyway, Caliban can strip enemies' armor, but what can he do to alleviate the issue with this dispersing damage? Simply put, debuffing. Caliban's second skill, he stomps the ground, lifts enemies up in the air, and they all take way more damage. It's not the #1 best debuff in the game, but I personally really enjoy it, and the debuff is strong enough if you build for a decent amount of power strength, to the point where even these dispersing projectiles against armor strip enemies are going to kill them within a few hits. So as you can tell by the footage, the gameplay is literally just me running around, stripping rooms full of enemies, occasionally throwing out a debuff, and then mostly spam casting my Smite. In terms of how frequently I'm casting Smite, it's probably better to just focus on an enemy, cast it once, and then have them die a few seconds later, because Caliban kind of wants a decent amount of strength, and we're going to start putting into negative efficiency, so spamming Smite becomes really heavy on energy. This is the main problem with today's build. This is kind of high investment. The amount of energy we have to use to spam Smite everywhere, as well as our other skills, it's not the most ideal, but it can be counteracted with the correct setup, which we're going to cover now. But just prepare yourself. If you're a newer player and maybe you don't have the certain resources, this build might be a bit of a bitch. First off, we got to talk the Archon shards. I'm using 3 Tower Forge blue shards for total energy max because these are going to replace my Prime Flow. And then we have 2 casting speed amber shards. These are just really useful on Caliban in general, but they also increase the DPS of Smite so we can spam cast it more. That also combines with the casting speed of Mortar. Mortar is going to give us a strength bonus and a casting speed bonus, just better for overall DPS. We're subsuming Smite over our first ability because we want that debuff from Sentient Wrath. Obviously we still want our sentience for shield regen and damage, and then we need the armor strip from Fusing Strike. When it comes to the build, we're doing a lot of heavy lifting when it comes to energy, as you can imagine, because of that removal of our first skill. So we've got Arcane Energize, Streamline and Fleeting Expertise to counteract Blind Rage, Equilibrium, and Universal Fallout. I'm going to be honest, I am not 100% sure if Universal Fallout is working on this build, because we have a total of 125% efficiency, Energize, and Equilibrium, which in my opinion should already be enough to keep us at a very high energy pool, even if we're spamming our skills, because those shards, our energy pool is already high. I'm sure most of you have seen what Universal Fallout can do on a Warframe like Corvex. It is literally infinite energy. You do not need Energize in the equation. Normally you would just go with Universal Fallout and Equilibrium for the combo, right? Even negative efficiency isn't going to break that combo if you're proccing as much radiation as a Corvex. Smite is base radiation, but even with us spamming the ability, I'm going to be honest, I don't think Arcane fucking Universal Fallout is proccing as much as it should be. Because with this build, if you go ham, you can run out of energy. which is why I suggest just being careful on your trigger finger when it comes to Smite. You don't actually need to spam it too much. If the enemy is armor stripped and then hit with Sentient Wrath, normally 1 or 2 casts of Smite is going to put them in the grave. Just want to put that out there. So if you want to be more erratic and spam, kind of like me, just know you can run out of energy, but that's mainly a playstyle and skill issue. We've got Stretch in here. The range is very important for our other skills other than Smite. Blind Rage and Umbral Intensify, just so we have a shit ton of damage and we get over that 200% strength threshold for the armor strip on Fusion Strike. Prime Continuity for duration, Prime Strength so we don't get knocked down. Primary Direction for even more tankiness. Brief Respite is optional. If your shields break, casting a skill with Brief Respite is going to instantly start up that shield regen again, which is good for high levels. But he is a very tanky Warframe, and you could forego Brief Respite and throw on maybe Augur Reach, so you have shield getting that way. Then you can throw in Summoner's Wrath. But this is how I'm running the build at the minute. Then I'm using a Panzervolk Profiler. It's just really good to have a viral primer, increasing the damage these enemies take from HP whilst they are armor stripped. You really can't go wrong with a Panzervolk Profiler. Is this build the best Caliban build ever and has the top DPS and you should be using it all the time? Fuck no. That is not the intention. But the build's actually really good. You can manage your energy enough just by not being too aggressive with your Smite. And it's really satisfying to use. Shit ton of fun. Definitely a playstyle worth checking out if you want to try something new on Caliban. I hope you guys enjoy it. Now we obviously got to talk about the main build for Caliban that, to be fair, I also find really fun. In the past, when he got reworked, the talk of the town was using boring old Nourish to just throw over his first skill because it's going to give you energy back and then you can buff your sentience with that viral damage. Don't get me wrong, still a great combination. But Caliban got a really good augment recently that kind of makes Nourish, in my opinion, a little bit redundant. Caliban's Razor Mortar augment applies to his first skill. So as you're cosplaying a Beyblade and getting your energy back and your health and your shields with your first skill, it's going to group up enemies with that spin. Then once those enemies are grouped up on the ground, it's going to cause your Orthalists, which is the variant of your sentience that has the little turrets, to focus fire the area where the enemies have been dropped on the ground by that grouping. And it's going to give them a buff with electric damage. Even without the armor stripping and debuffing from his other skills, this already does a fuck ton of damage. As enemies scale up in level, you could throw in that armor strip and debuff. This is borderline an insta-kill. Just spam your Beyblade, group up enemies instantly, and then your turrets are just going to murder everything. It's kind of like a mobility delayed nuke playstyle. You can go from room to room just clearing hordes. And to be honest, the best thing about this augment is the fact that it increases the speed and efficiency of your Orthalists. It's always driven me nuts when you cast your sentience and they are just sitting there waiting fucking 10 seconds to shoot or melee anything, whichever ones you're using. They do so much damage, especially with something like Nourish, but they're so slow. This augment completely fixes that problem, and in my opinion just makes Caliban a way better Warframe all around. As we talk about the build, remember we're still using the same Archon shards from the previous setup, and the same focus school, and the same companion. So we got that casting speed in there, we also have the energy max, so there's no prime flow in here. This build is way more focused on the damage dealt from our sentience, so we are using Summoner's Wrath, Arcane Aegis, Primary Direction, and a bunch of strength to increase our shield regen, and the strength is just going to benefit our damage overall. Of course, we've got Razor Mortar in here. Prime Continuity makes its return. You can throw another former in this build and throw on Archon Stretch. I will say this, when Caliban Prime dropped, before the 2 hotfixes, Archon Stretch was not working with the electricity damage dealt by your sentience. I'll make that clear. But I saw a comment on someone's video saying that this has since been fixed with one of these little fucking patches they put out. If Archon Stretch is giving you energy, slowly regenning it via Razor Mortar, then by all means fit it in and use it, but you are going to have to use another former, so is it really worth it? Probably not. Razor Gyre is literally just giving you maximum energy all the time anyway, especially with all this strength, so it's not really that needed. Rolling Guard for even more safety, this is a flex slot to be honest. Razor Gyre is kind of a shield gate in of itself, so you don't need to throw in an Augur mod or an Augur Secrets or a Brief Respite, so it's a flex slot. And then Arcane Camisado is going to give us even more strength and speed on our summons. And yeah, this build absolutely shreds. Doesn't need a helmet. You could throw in Nourish if you are still just adamant about using it with every setup. Probably replace it over your second skill. In my opinion, it's a bit redundant now. Anyway, those are the 2 builds that I'm using with Caliban currently. I wanted to make this video 3 builds, and I've just been trying to theorize like a new setup to use with him other than the Smite build, and I can't figure out anything that is literally worth mentioning. I keep trying certain helmets for specific synergies that are unique and fun and effective, and I haven't found anything yet. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like and sub. If not, then no worries, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.